My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
I'm Suzanne Daniels. Today's leadership quote comes from The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Welcome to episode 56.
What is going on, leader assistants? Trying to get hyped. Been locked down in my house during coronavirus, COVID lockdown, and hopefully you are hanging in there, staying safe, staying healthy, and staying at home during this crazy, crazy time. I'm excited about my book coming out very soon, leaderassistantbook.com. Check it out, leaderassistantbook.com. It doesn't release until June, but I've got a special pre-order bundle where you get the advanced PDF copy right now to start reading. So check it out at leaderassistantbook.com. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant Podcast. I'm very excited today to be chatting with Suzanne Daniels from LinkedIn. Suzanne, how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. So let's kind of take a step back and hear a little bit about your very first job, maybe your first job that you had to pay taxes on, and what skills you learned from that job that you still use today.
Ooh, first job I had to pay taxes on. So my first jobs were babysitting, which are probably a lot more relevant to the EA experience than the first job I had to pay taxes on, which was in a theater production. I did a lot of acting and singing growing up. I started doing that professionally when I was 12.
Wow. So did you come into contact with a lot of, I'm assuming, stage managers, production managers, maybe other types of support roles?
I did. Actually, one of the best EAs I know is a former stage manager on Broadway, and she has the best line about it I know, which is she got very tired of being a successful poor person.
Is that why you became an EA?
No. I mean, none of us go to college to be EAs, right? I think it's almost our career paths has come to define the career as much as anything. We come from literally all walks of life. There's no conventional EA path. I'm sure that in your interviews, how many times have you heard I just sort of fell into it? I hear it all the time. So between singing gigs when I lived in New York, I used to take care of kids. I was a babysitter. I was a nanny for some pretty prominent families on the Upper East Side. And before too long, when I get there to take care of their kids, they'd have another sitter there and they'd want me to help them. So could I help them with learning how to do a mail merge? Could I help them clean up their database? Could I help them with their Christmas invitations or, all sorts of stuff, from errands to party planning to all of that. And so pretty soon I stopped taking care of the kids and started taking care of the adults. And eventually that led to hospitality, which led to a job as the assistant to the managing partner of Nobu Restaurants Worldwide. And from there, the rest is history. And now I'm a career EA.
So what do you love about the role?
I love a lot of things about the role. I love that no day is the same. I love that the role has an impact. I come at the job a little differently than some of my friends who say there's no job that's too big for me. And of course that's true. We all love the $1 million deals that we're sitting in on and, when we save the day and all of that. But I come at the job from there's a no job too small kind of mindset. Because I think we're always going to be ready for the board of directors meeting. We're always going to be ready for that huge pitch. It's the little stuff. It's the small stuff that'll hang you up. the caterer's not there on time. Your boss isn't wearing clean pants. All of those things are the details that can make or break a day or a meeting. And I like to take care of those details. And I like to watch the ripple effect taking care of those things has throughout my executive's day, therefore to the team, therefore out to their teams, et cetera, et cetera. And I like to watch those ripples grow, even if I just dropped a small stone in the pond.
So do you have any, save the day stories or interesting stories in your career that you can share?
Oh, everything's different. You try not to have the days that you have to save the day where things go terribly awry. Mm-hmm. But, it doesn't always happen that way. I'll tell a funny story because no matter who you're talking to, if you hang out with enough assistants, it's the caterers, right? Mm-hmm. So I was working for a startup, and we had a board of directors meeting, a very, very important one. Started at 7:30 in the morning, and we had breakfast delivered, et cetera, et cetera. And it was waiting at the front desk, and I came up with some other assistants to get it and bring it back to the room. And we had a temp sitting at the reception desk that day, very sweet girl, and she decided to help. And she picked up this paper bag by the handles instead of by the bottoms or the sides. And all of the fruit salad fell out from underneath the bag onto our very clean reception area floor. It's like 10 minutes before the meeting's supposed to start. And we are all covered in fruit sauce, and the floor is sticky. And, somebody's running for a mop and somebody's running for, a broom and anything that we can find to sort of clean it all up. And then I send a girl down to Witchcraft and tell her to buy as many fruit salad cups as they have. And we bought all these individual fruit salad cups. We're pouring them all in a bowl, and we get it all out. And the first person comes off the elevator, and, everything looks great. No problem. Piece of cake. And my boss sits down, and a little while later, she looks at me and she goes, "It's so weird. Why does the reception smell like pineapple?" And I thought we had gotten away with it, but all day our reception area smelled like pineapple.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it is always the food, isn't it? It's always something with the caterers, something with the pickup time or the delivery delays, or
caterers and car services,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what was the biggest mistake you've made as an assistant, and what did you learn from the experience?
Biggest mistake. I guess when I was at GE, I'd been there for a few months, and my job, I got there very early in the morning before the chief of staff and before my boss, and I would go through the calendar, make sure everything was lined up and perfect, check for any changes, printed out the calendar just so that we had a hard copy as well, and everything was great. And somehow, halfway through the morning, a meeting fell off the calendar, and we missed it. And the only person who had been in the calendar that day was me. So when I say the meeting fell off the calendar, I obviously hit something, did something, moved something around, and it was obviously my fault. Hmm. And that was a tough one. That was a very tough one because it was a very important thing that we missed, and there was nothing to be done. We all knew about it. We all had it on our radar. And when it fell off the calendar, it didn't pop up in anybody's alarms or anything. And there were 3 people in the room, and all 3 of us just missed it. Hmm. And having to stand in front of my relatively new boss at GE, the vice chair of GE, and tell her that I had blown it. And then, unfortunately, also not knowing what I had done. So not being able to say, but this is what I've done to correct it, or this is how it won't ever happen again. All I could say is it's never happened to me before. And I'm really, really sorry. And I will do everything I can to be super careful that it will never happen again. But I can't tell you what I did. And that was a long morning.
What was her reaction?
What could her reaction be? I mean, she said, okay. And, she's an amazing person and a great leader and all of that. And she said, okay. And we went about our day, but it was a long day. I think we were all ready to go home at that point, and we still had about 6 hours left. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So what's the number one struggle that you've had or that you've seen other assistants have as assistants?
I think that the one thing that you cannot teach and that you cannot duplicate and that you cannot scale is chemistry. If you are with the wrong executive and don't have the right chemistry, it doesn't matter how good your skills are. Doesn't matter. Everybody at this level can type. Everybody at this level knows how to manage a calendar and to handle complex travel and to do all those things. But if you and your executive don't have that sync where you really start to anticipate each other's thoughts and know what each other needs and be able to know ahead of time what's going to happen and to think 10 steps ahead, et cetera, it's not going to work. I worked for somebody once who used to tell me yes, just because they thought I wanted to hear yes. And it was a constant struggle with me going, I don't have any skin in this game. The answer is what the answer is. You don't have to say yes because you think that's what I want to hear. But if you say yes, I'm going to go do it. And if you really mean no, I can't help. And, that was a really hard relationship to finally just say, you know what, this isn't going to work for us. I'm the wrong assistant for you. And some people just don't work well with assistants. Some people shouldn't have them. They want to do everything themselves, and it makes their careers a lot harder, but it's not necessarily a wrong call for some executives.
So if you're an assistant who just started a new job and the chemistry thing is just not happening, are there things that you would recommend or encourage them to try to help the chemistry happen? Or is it one of those things where it's just like, sometimes it's just can't happen?
Well, I don't think you pull the plug right away. I mean, some executives you click with and 2-3 weeks you're off to the races and you just know. Other people, it takes a good 6 months of like trial and error and trying it out and honest conversations and asking for feedback. And, just because something worked 1 week and they're like, oh yeah, I like this, doesn't mean 3 weeks later it's not bugging them to death and you've got to change it up. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing that I tell new assistants is it's not about how you work, it's about how they work.
Yeah.
So there is no wrong way for, at least in my eyes, for an executive to work. There's no wrong way for their email box to be if it works for them. There's no wrong way for their calendar to be if it works for them. What your job is to do is to work within those parameters and to try to optimize them. Yes, if you're lucky, you're working with an executive who's completely open to trying new things, and that's really great if you can make things even better. But some people like things the way they like them. And so you just have to optimize and work around those parameters as best you can.
So let's talk a little bit about managing an inbox. What's your number one tip for managing an executive's inbox?
I just try to clear out as much of the junk as possible so that we can get to what's important. Any spam, any newsletters, things like that can all go into folders to read later, but they don't need to be in the mainstream. Mm-hmm. I try to create as many rules as possible so they don't even hit the mainstream so that they go directly into those folders. And then if they want to read the latest newsletter or the latest whatever, they've got a folder there. They can see how many unread emails are in it. They can click on it at any point, but that's out of their way. So when they see the correspondence, they see what's important and what's relevant to that day. I also, at least for me personally working, I really like to get into the office before, so that even if my executive is reading on the train or whatnot, by the time they get in, I've sorted through as much as possible so that we can have a conversation about it as opposed to us both hitting the ground running at the exact same time. That doesn't work as well for me.
That's great. So what would you say to someone who, basically asks you, what are you going to do after your career as an assistant? Don't you want to work your way up the corporate ladder? What's next for you?
Well, I kind of find that a strange question, quite frankly, because I love my job. I think I'm good at it. I think that being a quote unquote C-level executive assistant is a fantastic career path. I think that it's a great role because it's a role that you can grow within, but that you don't necessarily need to grow out of to find success and more. Mm-hmm. The more you take on, the more you learn, the more some things like become rote, the more you can dig into projects, learn more about the business, take on more responsibilities. But I like having a partner, and I like feeling like I'm making that difference, and I like taking care of people. And I mean, when I say that I'm a career EA, I mean it. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things I find at so many of these executive assistant conferences. I went to one in Dallas a few years ago that I actually caused a bit of a stir about, because this woman said, if you ever want to get ahead in life, this woman running a big conference, a big session, said, if you ever want to get ahead, you have to stop planning the office Christmas party. And I was offended by that in many ways, because that was part of my job description. It was actually in the job description when they hired me. It was in the job description in my OKRs. It was in my job description against my bonus. All of that was there. And to think that I was less of an assistant and less of a crucial part of the business because event planning was part of my domain was insulting and ridiculous. And that she sat there in a room full of people who did the same thing that I did and thought that we wanted to get ahead and not do what we were doing. We were all there to be better assistants and to learn from each other and to learn best practices. And she was there to tell us all that what we wanted to do was become project managers, and what we wanted to do was become Sheryl Sandberg and COOs and CEOs. And I think it's great if people want to do that. But I certainly don't think that that being an assistant should be seen as a stepping stone to get to bigger and better things. Being an assistant is an art form within itself. And it's one that can always be challenging, always be changing, and that's crucial to many businesses.
So what's something we can do to promote that, what you just said about the EA work is a valid profession, it's a respectable career? What's something that us as assistants can do to elevate the role of an assistant?
LinkedIn has done an exceptional job of this. I've never been at a company who's done it better. And I've only been there for a short time, but they're really working on coming up with career paths for people who maybe get the job young and are looking to figure out what their next play is, that they can see that there's room to grow from a junior admin to a regular admin to a senior admin to an executive assistant all the way through to a senior executive assistant. They have learnings. They have conferences now. There's an LinkedIn Administrative Professionals Conference. 140 professionals get together once every year, once every 18 months, and share best practices. We bring in guests, we talk, et cetera. And it's a great community. And LinkedIn invests in that because they believe that it is such a crucial role to their business. So I think that the first thing to do is start at it from a business case. If you prove to businesses how worthy you are, then they're going to hire people with that intent of treating them with worth. And that sort of ripples through the world as well, right? And then there are just stereotypes that are always going to be there. And you can't let those stop you from doing your job.
Yeah. So if you're at a company that does not embrace and support and even invest in the role of an assistant? Maybe it's a smaller company, maybe it's a large company that just doesn't put any effort into it. What have you seen other assistants kind of start from the ground up, those types of networks and that type of culture, or is it really something that has to come from the top?
No, it can come from anybody. The company that started sending me to conferences only had 2 assistants, but I wanted to learn and see what was out there and see what I could bring back to us, and I could show a business case for doing that. I think the most important thing is to put numbers behind it, to quantify everything. And then if I can quantify and make a financial justification or a business case for what I want to do, I've never had an executive or a company tell me no. Mm-hmm. I've had them tell me that we have to wait until there's more money or things like that. I mean, I worked in startups for a long time, but I've never had somebody come out and say, you're wrong, if I put together a business case and a financial upside for them.
So what would be maybe a couple practical tips on something to include in the business case proposal?
Well, if you want to attend a conference for EAs that's based on best practices with, say, Microsoft, because I know there are a lot of conferences out there that have Microsoft executives teaching the latest cutting edge Microsoft techniques, et cetera. Or if you want to get certified in Excel or things like that, you put time behind it, if nothing else. You can say, look, if I get this much better at this, it's going to take me this much less time to do it. Mm-hmm. And I'll be able to train these people, and they won't have to go to a conference to learn it. They'll be able to learn it from me, which will save you this much time and this much money. Mm-hmm. Seems to me that that's a no-brainer for any boss.
Yeah. That's great. So what's it like working for LinkedIn? You said they've got some great support for assistants, but mm-hmm. in general, it's a pretty big company, obviously pretty well known. What are some maybe interesting things that you noticed when you started working for a company like that?
I was impressed from the second I became a candidate all the way through. The culture is so important there, but you work for some companies where the culture is so important they forget about the work. Mm-hmm. And LinkedIn doesn't do that. They're so inclusive that there's room for the introverts, there's room for the extroverts, there's room for everyone there who's doing good work. And yet everyone there seems to get along. There's fun. There's a sense of belonging. There's a real sense of mission, and the mission at LinkedIn speaks volumes to me. The global workforce and putting everyone to work is such an important thing, and that every single employee, from the barista all the way to the CEO and everybody in between, is working towards that goal and can see their place in the machine that helps make those goals possible for so many people globally. It's really a special feeling to get when you walk in the door every day.
What was something that they did when you said, even from the moment that you started mm-hmm. the interview process, you could tell something was different? What was maybe something practical for those listening that are maybe oversee onboarding and oversee recruiting?
Well, they let me talk to a lot of people. Not all of my interviews were about asking me questions. Some of my interviews were people who were doing the job or had done the job, talking to me about what the job was and letting me ask questions, which was great. It really gave me a lot of insight to the role, to whether or not it was a role that I thought I could do, whether or not it was a place that I thought I would do well in, whether or not it was an executive I thought I could serve well. So those things were incredibly important. My beginning interviews were not face-to-face. They were all virtual. And I really appreciated that respect for my time, that until this got serious, they didn't want me to worry about a commute or things like that, that it was fine to do it virtually. And that just that level of respect went a long way with me. Yeah, just all the way around, those things really stood out to me as something that you don't always get from a job interview process.
That's great. So do you have any tips on networking with other assistants and maybe the importance of networking with other EAs?
Oh, it's so crucial in New York. And now that we're all so global, I mean, nobody can know everybody. Nobody can have a connection anywhere. And in New York, when we all get together, it's a lot of trading. Like, hey, does anybody know how to get into per se? Yeah, but I can't ever get anybody into whatever. Do you know anybody at whatever? Oh, yeah, I do. And like, who can I call about this in San Francisco? Or, what's the best place to go for this in London? And so there's a lot of just resource sharing as much as anything. And those resources are crucial when you have people who fly all over the place and have to entertain people and, that you want to take good care of. Those resources are great and nobody can have them all at their fingertips. So sharing those is super important. And then the sticky widgets, I've got this big hairy ball at work and I'm not sure how to untangle it. Have you ever done this? Those are great. I have a friend who's in EA and we get together, even just the two of us, and have coffee probably once a month. And, it's ideally social, but inevitably there's always one thing at somebody's job that we're like, okay. I mean, and you have to be discreet. Obviously, you can't get into specifics, but unless it's like some software problem, in which case you're like, do you like the new this, that? I don't like the new this, that. What can we do about that? Things like that. So I think it's absolutely crucial.
If you could snap your fingers and instantly give all assistants more of something, what would it be?
Time.
Yeah, I think we all would appreciate more time. What's one book or resource that you would recommend to all assistants?
I just finished Essentialism.
Yeah, it's great.
Which I liked a lot. And I've actually now given it to 3 people that I know.
Nice. So
that's kind of my new mantra. And then I am halfway through Brave New Work, which thus far I'm enjoying immensely and is really helping me to think about new and different ways that best practices are there for a reason, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best practices for you at any given time. And making adjustments and changing things and being disruptive without shutting everything down. And because LinkedIn is always changing and always evolving, even if it's not from my desk level, it's a super interesting read and it really helps me understand the entrepreneurial and the innovative mindset.
So what's something that an assistant can do to grow their skills and develop new skills, and essentially if they want to make a career out of their assistant role, or maybe they're early in their career and they want to work their way up, what are some things you suggest they do to develop and work their way up the EA ladder, if you will?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to go to somebody with more experience than you. Don't be afraid to ask somebody if you can shadow them for a day or two or sit at their desk and watch the way they work. Don't be afraid to ask for samples of their work. I'm always happy to share a travel itinerary with somebody. I black out anything that's not appropriate to share, but I'm working with somebody right now who's looking to make a career change from marketing. And she's realized that what she'd really like to do in life is to be an EA. And, we sit and we play calendar Tetris and things like that to really, I think the biggest thing is just the thinking on your feet is the most crucial element. If my job is this and they can't think past that, it's not going to work because everything's your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So what makes an assistant a leader?
You know, I thought about that last night. I was talking to my husband about this, and I was thinking about that. And it's a sticky widget, right? Because we've all seen it. We've all seen the train wreck where an assistant decides that they know better. And, that's not the way it goes. So I would say what makes an assistant a leader is the contribution more than anything. It's the quiet influence. It's the, providing the right research, providing the right information, providing the right support so that the leaders have everything that they need to make the right decisions. And if you're asked an opinion, most of us have one. But when I started thinking about this, I had a different answer than the one now. But I really feel that the most important role in executive assistant is the assistant part of it. We're not the executive. And having your boss's back, I think, is crucial.
I've been thinking about the title, and there's a lot of people saying, well, we should change the title and we should take assistant out and all this. And I like having the word assistant in there because I think it's very descriptive. It's very easy to know what you do. But what are your thoughts on just the whole conversation around the title?
I think that a lot of us become leaders in our groups, in our industries, in our companies, just by doing the quiet work that we do. When my boss at Nobu left Nobu, I left with him to start his own thing. And my role went from being very defined to very undefined in a day and a half. And all of a sudden I was doing everything. I was sourcing deals. I was figuring out contracts. I was hiring people. I was, researching salaries and doing all sorts of things that wouldn't typically be an assistant job. But they were all within a service to him and what he needed at that time. And as the company grew and we could hire more people to do some of those things, I lost some of those responsibilities so that I could tackle other stuff. And that was fine with me. To have that flexibility, I think it's not only crucial to your job, but it's what makes the job so interesting and fun.
Yeah, I agree. So you mentioned sourcing deals. So I've been thinking about the idea that assistants should be one of the best sales people, or at least know the company's mission and vision and product like the back of their hand. Do you have any thoughts on how assistants can think of themselves more as, maybe not more as, but additionally as, salespeople when they meet people on the street or they're talking about their company?
Yeah, you have to be an evangelist, right?
Yeah.
If you don't believe in the vision, it's never going to really resonate with you. I've taken jobs for a paycheck. I've got a family to support, and that's the way life goes sometimes. But my family's happier. I'm happier. Everything works better if I'm working for people and at a place that I believe in. And I think if you have that belief piece, then you do know everything. You seek it out. You want to be part of something. And if you don't know something, you look for it. You read it, you listen to it, you understand it, you ask questions about it. And it just happens very organically. This role that I'm in now is the first time I've supported somebody in a sales function. And it's incredibly interesting. It's incredibly interesting work, and it's incredibly important work at LinkedIn. And I really, we just did our first offsite last week, and I cannot begin to tell you how much I learned just being in the room with smart people who are innovative in that space. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Well, Suzanne, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to chat. And is there something that we can do to support you, or somewhere online that we can find you and help you out? Or is there any big side hustles you have, or anything at all that we can do to help you out?
No, my side hustle's name is Abigail. She's in her last week of kindergarten. So that's pretty much my entire side hustle right now. I did a huge social media purge last year. So the only place you can find me is LinkedIn, ironically enough.
Nice.
But yeah, reach out. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know, what you're thinking, what you're working on, how you think that we could be doing things better. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always looking for new connections and new friends, and I'll never turn anybody down for a connection or for a conversation. So, I'm super interested in what you're doing here, and, broadening it out to people who might be in pockets where they don't have necessarily huge EA networks, and seeing what comes of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again. And I'll share your LinkedIn link on the show notes, and that way people can reach out to you if they want. And yeah, thanks so much for taking time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jeremy. Have a great day.
Thanks again to Suzanne for a great episode. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/56, leaderassistant.com/56. And don't forget to check out the new Leader Assistant book landing page at leaderassistantbook.com. Talk to you next time.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com